Welcome, dear viewer, to the first episode in a new series I'm doing called Learn About Ontario's Trees with Me. The purpose of this series is to educate myself about Ontario's trees, but you're more than welcome to come along with me for this journey. Our first episode is going to be on white spruce. So white spruce, that is under the scientific name Pice glauca. Pice is like resin or tar in Latin, and then glauca is like a Latinized Greek word which just means like simmering green, so it's like green tar. So of course white spruce are evergreens, they're conifers as well, which means they don't have like deciduous leaves that fall off. They're there all year round, and they're shaped like a cone. We take a cone here, we put it over the white spruce, yup, that about adds up. That looks about right. Okay, so as white spruce age, they become slightly more round and even. So on the left side, we have a young white spruce. You can see it is very pointy. And on the right side, we have a more old one where it is like more like a cylinder. But still, they always retain that basic pyramid shape, as you can see. So mature white spruce are quite resilient as opposed to their younger counterparts like this one here. This one, if it was in a heavy frost, it might die. But the mature white spruce can tolerate dry soil and wet soil as long as there's some amount of drainage. They can also tolerate a lot of cold and shaded areas as well. They do less well in dry areas. They also have a low tolerance for urban pollution, so they're less common in like major human settlements. So if we look at this map of Ontario, as you can see here in southern Ontario, there is less white spruce trees because there are more people there and they don't do well with people. This is a map showing their range across North America. You can see they do very well in the very cold climates like Alaska, like the Canadian North. And interestingly, you'll see that there are none in North Dakota. And the reason for this is that North Dakota is very dry. And it is more warm in the surrounding areas like New England or like some of the Midwest. So white spruce can live to be between 250 and 300 years in nature if they're undisturbed by humans. But in practice, in human areas, they're more likely to live around 150 years. According to the Ontario government, the white spruce can live up to be 1,000 years old. They allege that there are some like that in the Arctic Circle. I was somewhat skeptical of this. I very briefly looked it up. The oldest one I could find, I saw there was one journal article about a 668-year-old white spruce in the Arctic Circle that they used to study like climate change and stuff like that. That was the oldest one I can find. But if you trust the government of Ontario, apparently they can be up to 1,000 years old. So per annum, they grow about 30 to 60 centimeters. They will continue that rate for about 30 to 40 years, at which they stop growing. They typically reach a height of about 24 meters, but they can exceed 30 meters if the conditions are right. The trunk of a mature white spruce is about 60 centimeters in diameter, which I think is quite large. I have this picture here of a guy holding like a 30 centimeter radius circle so you can get an idea. But under ideal conditions, the trunks can reach about 100 centimeters in diameter. The needles are about 2 centimeters long, they're waxy, they're stiff, and they're sharp. They have 4 sides, almost like a rhombus or like a diamond shape. The needles are attached to the branches individually rather than in pairs, so just like one needle is attached to the branch. If you don't really know what I mean, this is our red pine for contrast. You can see there's 2 needles that would be attached to the branch. In contrast, the white spruce only has 1. So the cones are typically about 5 to 7 centimeters long, and they bloom in May or June. When the cones are first conceived, they're very light green, like a greenish brown here, or like a red here. It also depends on the gender of the cone. And they take about 4 to 8 months following pollination to fully mature and to fall off the tree. So white spruce are monoecious, meaning that both male and female cones can grow on the same tree, but they're in different structures. So they have some cones are male cones and some cones are female cones. This is in contrast to hermaphroditism, where it's like one structure would contain both male and female gametes. So the gametes are separate depending on like the sex of the cone. So the male cones will produce pollen, while the female cones produce seeds. The wind will knock the pollen from the male cone onto the female cone to fertilize it. And upon fertilization, the cone will begin to ripen until it reaches the point where it falls off the tree, usually in late summer or early fall. So a young white spruce bark is like soft like this, but as it ages, it becomes more flaky and rough and scaly, as we can see on the right. So white spruce naturally produces a thick aromatic resin, which is sometimes called pitch or gum. This evolved as a defense against pests like bark beetles, which they can carry diseases, and also the resin helps the tree repair mechanical damage. So the resin contains antiseptic properties, so even like mammals can use it as a medicine, like humans can do this. Like this is someone selling like white spruce resin as a medicine. The Native Americans did this for a very long time. And also it can be allegedly rubbed on the chest to reduce phlegm and like open up the airways. The resin can also be boiled and mixed with charcoal to create glue, or it can be made as a fire starter when it is hardened. White spruce is vital to the North American lumber industry. So this is because the microscopic wood cells called fibers are very long and strong, making it ideal for pulp and paper. It is also very stable and has a straight grain, which makes it resistant to splitting in undesirable ways, so it is often used for construction. White spruce is often used for Christmas trees as well, but here on the right is President Nixon in front of a white spruce Christmas tree. White spruce often grows alongside of black spruce, and from a distance they may appear to be indistinguishable. Can you tell which image is of white spruce? Is it this one here on the left, or is it this one on the right? The answer is this one on the left is white spruce, but how do we know? So one way to distinguish between them is by looking at their twigs. So you can see the white spruce, it is more smooth, it is more flat, while the black spruce is more like coursey and bumpy. People they call these little marks, they call them hairs, but obviously it's not a hair, it's not a mammal. But yeah, that's what they call them, the people. And then the white spruce needles are also slightly longer and sharper than the black spruce needles as demonstrated. The white spruce cones are larger and they're more cylindrical. The black spruce cones are smaller and they're more round. So white spruce also have more even foliage throughout their branches, which allows them to have that classic pyramid shape, while in the black spruce there's more foliage on the top of the tree, and very often the lower ends of the tree are just empty like that. So we can see here, bringing back this cone from the beginning, if we lie on top of the white spruce, yup, that adds up. Taking the cone and lying it on top of the black spruce, that does not so much add up. Finn.